This video will take a closer look at how a Pandas data frame is indexed and how to use those indexes in interesting ways. Now, we already saw in a previous video that an index is basically, by default, these incrementing integers starting at 0. And I can access a row by its index using the LOC attribute. So I can say gamesdf.loc, and then using the indexing operator, 1, and that will return me the row associated with index 1 as a series with the column names as the index for that series. And because this is a series, I can then say gamesdf loc, and I could then further drill down and say something like home team name, and I'll get the Chiefs. All right, I can also slice along an index. So what I'll do is I'll pull up the first 10 rows here, and then I'll say gamesdf.loc, and I'll pass it a slice 2 through 8. And I'll get back a data frame this time instead of a single series. But notice this, that when you're slicing a data frame by the index, both the lower and upper bound are included. If this were a Python list, you would go up to 8, but not including 8. But notice that 8 is included here when you're slicing a Python data frame by the index. Now, we also saw earlier how we could do something like this. Gamesdf, say gamesdf sub year equals 2007. So this would be a way that we can filter or select data within a data frame. And this will give us all of the games that were played in the year 2007. There's actually, if we're doing this a lot, of course this can get rather messy, we can actually set the index to a column in the data frame. So for example, if I'm going to be accessing rows by year a lot, well, then I could just simply say gamesdf set index, name of a column, and then like we saw before, we can use this in place attribute and a lot of the time to do an in place assignment of the data frame. And then if I look at gamesdf.head again, you'll see this time that first of all, the default index with the integers is gone, and notice that the year has been moved down. The column name of the year has been moved down, meaning that this is an index. So now I could simply say gamesdf.loc 2007, and that will give me all the games played in 2007. And if we look back up here, there were 267 of them here, and there were 267 here. And I could slice this. So I could say gamesdf.loc, I could get games 2007 through 2010. There we go. Now, it's worth noting that you still have that default integer index, even though it's not displayed in the data frame. So there's another attribute called iloc, and this is the integer-based index, the default integer-based index. So if I say 1 here, I'm still going to get the row that would be associated with index 1, the positional index. And I could also slice that one, just like before. So regardless of what the index really is, you'll always have access to that default integer index. Now, if you want to get that index back, you could say gamesdf.reset index, and then again I could say in place equals true, And if I get my head again, I'll see that everything's back to normal. Now I'm going to copy and paste another line here. We saw this. This would basically get all of the games that were played in the year 2017, week 10. Now, this is really getting messy. So what we can actually do is create what's called a multi-index that has multiple levels. So I'm going to say gamesdf.setIndex. I'm going to pass it a list of column names. So I'm going to say the first level will be the year, and the second level will be the week. And again, that will be an in place. And we'll look at gamesdf head. And now notice that we have both of these columns. We have two columns that have been moved. They've been moved over here. And in the first level is the year, and the second level is the week. So now if I wanted to recreate that same selection up here, all I'd have to do is say games df loc 2007 7. And there we go. So as you can see, setting an index or even a multi-index can create shortcuts that would otherwise have long chains of conditionals. In the next video, we'll take a look at another extension in Visual Studio Code that can help you work with Pandas DataFrames.